This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Sue Herrera.
Win streak. Stocks reach further into record territory with the S&P 500 logging its sixth straight session of gains.
Revving up, sales soar at auto showrooms as Americans buy bigger, more expensive vehicles.
Costly care, cancer, a new treatment, and an historic price tag. Those stories and more tonight on Nightly Business Report for Tuesday, October 3rd. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sue Herrera.
And I'm Bill Griffith in for Tyler Matheson, who's on assignment tonight. And I'm coming to you this evening from the New York Stock Exchange, where once again stocks finished at levels never seen before. Fresh records were set for all the major averages as upbeat car sales and expanding growth across the globe helped to lift stocks once again. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose by 84 points, closed at 22,641. The Nasdaq added 15. The S&P gained 5. And the rally isn't just here in the U.S. It's happening pretty much everywhere, as Bob Pisani explains for us tonight.
Stocks remained in record territory today as the so-called reflation trade continues to power the market to new highs. Reflation means expansion of the global economy, a little bit of inflation, but not too much. Central banks talking more about raising rates, and in the United States, the prospects for tax cuts boosting corporate profits in 2018. This isn't just a U.S. phenomenon. Stocks have been rising in Europe and Asia as well. Japan hit a two-year high today, and stocks in Hong Kong were also near a two-year high. The effect of this reflation trade is that many sectors have been rallying, particularly banks, which do better in a rising rate environment, energy stocks, which are benefiting from higher oil prices, and industrials and transports that benefit from an improving global economy. Elsewhere, car sales today were strong in September, with both GM and Ford reporting better than expected sales. GM's up 7%. It's been on a tear for a month, partly on the prospects of more sales due to all the cars ruined in Hurricanes Harvey and Irma. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Bob Pisani at the New York Stock Exchange.
With stocks at records, the world's most well-known investor, Warren Buffett, thinks conditions are still right to buy stocks.
In the end, you measure laying out money for an asset in relation to what you're going to get back, and the number one yardstick is U.S. governments. And when you get 230 on the 10-year, I think stocks will do considerably better than that. So if I have a choice of the two, I'm going to take stocks at that point. On the other hand, if interest rates were on the 10-year were 5 or 6, you'd have a whole different valuation standards for stocks.
Some investors disagree and think things are getting a bit frothy. So what should you do? Tripp Miller is partner at Golan Capital Partners, and he joins us now to talk about that. Tripp, welcome. Nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me on again.
What do you make of Warren Buffett's point that given the fact that we have very, very low interest rates, stocks still hold value?
Well, we agree with Mr. Buffett. As value investors, we're big fans of his, and we agree that in a market where you find the 10-year Treasury at 230, it's not very compelling for us to deploy capital for the next 10 years. And we think that the average investor is probably much better served with a concentrated basket of value stocks.
I see that you like retail as a sector, and I'm intrigued by that, given that this has been a horrible year for many retailers. And almost a record number of stores have closed. We've had bankruptcies. Department stores are struggling right now. What do you like about retail?
Well, we agree with all those things. That's why we've also been long-term shareholders at Amazon. But we feel that retail has been unfairly punished. On a case-by-case basis, we're finding a few things to look at and do. And one of those things that we've done this year is purchase shares recently in Dollar General. And in the case of Dollar General, we're getting a great business that's buying back shares aggressively that'll open over 1,000 stores this year on top of the 300 that they've acquired. So we like businesses that we think play well in an Amazon world, maybe in areas of the country where Amazon isn't.
You also like insurance, but on a global basis, not just domestic companies.
Absolutely. Specifically, we're big fans of Fairfax Financial out of Canada, run by Prem Watsa, who's referred to as the Warren Buffett of Canada. Like Dollar General, a stock that had been beaten down 20–30% over the last year. So while the market was up, we feel like we're getting value there. It's a global insurance company. It's realized a lot of value recently in several of its international businesses. And again, like Dollar General, it's just recently announced a share buyback. So we like partnering with businesses like Fairfax that we get global exposure to, plus an interest rate play. If interest rates rise, they'll benefit in their investment portfolio.
On that note, Trip, thank you very much. Trip Miller with Golan Capital Partners.
Meanwhile, companies in the S&P 500 are returning record amounts of money to shareholders in the form of dividends. According to S&P Dow Jones indices, net dividend increases rose by more than 150% in the third quarter compared to a year ago. Those net dividend increases include all increased dividends minus dividend decreases.
As Bob mentioned earlier, auto sales in September rebounded as victims of Hurricanes Irma and Harvey started buying new cars and trucks to replace those that were destroyed. The strength of the sales last month, though, exceeded even the most optimistic forecasts. Phil LeBeau has more on the strong September in the showrooms.
With an estimated 800,000 to 1 million vehicles destroyed by hurricanes in Texas and Florida, automakers knew storm victims would be eager to buy replacement cars and trucks. That drove much stronger than expected sales in September for Toyota, GM, and Ford. When insurance adjusters tallied up the number of totaled vehicles last month and started cutting claim checks for storm victims, much of that insurance money went towards down payments on bigger, more expensive vehicles, primarily trucks and SUVs. That's one reason Ford F-Series sales surged more than 20% last month, while GM saw record demand for some of its crossover utility vehicles, and Toyota's SUV sales also popped. Overall, September was the strongest month this year for auto sales, which helped automakers bring down their inventories. The question now is whether this was a brief increase in demand spurred by the hurricanes, or if it shows more strength for the economy as a whole. With the unemployment rate near its lowest point in years, many believe car buyers should continue streaming into dealerships. There's one other factor that could keep auto dealers busy through the end of the year. It's strong consumer confidence. If it remains high, that's a good indication we could see solid auto sales through December. Phil LeBeau, Nightly Business Report, Chicago.
And in a related story late today, Ford outlined plans to aggressively cut costs and invest more resources on electric and self-driving cars. The automaker also plans to reallocate about $7 billion to increase development and production of trucks and SUVs, which are very popular, while de-emphasizing less profitable cars and sedans. New CEO Jim Hackett is meeting with investors in New York today.
On Capitol Hill, Senator Elizabeth Warren told the CEO of Wells Fargo that he should be fired. During a congressional hearing focused on the fake account scandal, CEO Tim Sloan defended his leadership in a heated appearance, even as Senator Warren said she didn't think he was the one for the job.
This is about personal responsibility. Wells Fargo cheated millions of people for years. The Federal Reserve should remove all of the current board members who served during the fake account scam. And Mr. Sloan, you say you've been making changes at Wells Fargo for 30 years, but you enabled this fake account scam, you got rich off it, and then you tried to cover it up. At best, you were incompetent. At worst, you were complicit. And either way, you should be fired.
In response, Sloan said the board has taken strong action in terms of executive accountability and that his vision as CEO is the right one for the bank.
I'm not afraid to make hard decisions when it's needed, and I have the support of 270,000 people. That's why I think I'm the right person.
Sloan said the company has corrected its missteps and says Wells Fargo is a better bank today because of it.
And in fact, Wells Fargo's biggest shareholder still believes in the CEO. During a CNBC interview, Warren Buffett said that when a company uncovers a problem, it has to be dealt with quickly.
Tim Sloan has my faith. The truth was that 99% of the people were perfectly decent people. They were just like the people working at Goldman or some other place, and somebody gone haywire, and other people didn't report it fast. But when you find a problem, you have to jump on it. I mean, that's just basic.
In fact, when asked if he sold any Wells Fargo shares, Mr. Buffett said only enough to stay under 10%, which is something that the Fed requires. Mr. Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway holds now 9.4% stake in the bank.
Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway is acquiring nearly 40% of the operator of Pilot and Flying J travel centers, where truckers and drivers can refuel, eat, and shop. The company says it generates more than $20 billion in annual revenue. Berkshire did not disclose how much it paid.
Remember the 2013 hack at Yahoo that compromised more than 1 billion accounts? Well, today the company said it was a lot more than that. In fact, Yahoo now believes that all of the approximately 3 billion Yahoo user accounts existing at that time were affected. Verizon, which now owns Yahoo's core assets, says it is continuing to work closely with law enforcement.
The former CEO of Equifax was also on Capitol Hill today. Lawmakers described the massive data breach at the company as a travesty, and that was just the beginning. Aditi Roy reports from Washington.
Good morning. The Subcommittee on Digital Commerce and Consumer Protection will come to order.
Former Equifax CEO Richard Smith took the hot seat this morning in front of a House subcommittee, ready to answer tough questions on the company's massive cybersecurity breach. It's the first of 3 days of congressional testimony before the House and Senate. Smith started with an apology.
I'm here today to say to each and every person affected by this breach, I'm truly and deeply sorry for what happened.
Then the grilling began from about 24 lawmakers. The questions and rebukes were fast and furious.
I hope that we can be given assurance to the committee and to the American people that this committee will have a markup and a hearing with bills that we can take to the floor before the holidays to give the American people, consumers, confidence again, because this is a mess.
Among the new details, Smith revealed that it took the company 40 days to notify the public about the breach because at first, Equifax only noticed suspicious activity and that it took weeks to understand the depth and breadth of the breach. He also said it happened because of human error, with the person neglecting to implement a software patch for the vulnerability, and technical mistakes, with the scanner not picking up the vulnerability. That led to more questions by House Energy and Commerce Committee Chair Greg Walden.
How does this happen when so much is at stake? I don't think we can pass a law that, excuse me for saying this, but fixes stupid.
Smith was also questioned about the selling of shares by 3 company executives after the breach was discovered. But Smith maintains there was no foul play.
You believe that this stock was sold merely as a matter of course, as would be true in any other quarter?
Yes.
You do not believe it was based upon knowledge known by these gentlemen related to the breach?
Congressman, I've known these individuals for some of them up to 12 years. They're honorable men. I have no indication that they had any knowledge of the breach at the time they made the sale.
But some lawmakers weren't so quick to buy that argument.
I think it's very fishy. Then when on July 31st, there was a lot of information that there had probably been a breach, and August 1st and 2nd, that over $1 million in stock was sold. It doesn't smell good.
Smith will answer more questions when he heads over to the Senate tomorrow. That's where he'll appear before 2 other committees. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Aditi Roy, Washington.
Still ahead, the president tours Puerto Rico, and financial aid was part of the focus.
Thousands of miles from Wall Street, investigators in Las Vegas are still searching for answers following the worst mass shooting in our country's history. Jane Wells reports.
How did he do it? Investigators combed through the hotel room 64-year-old Stephen Paddock used as his sniper perch to slaughter 59 people and injure hundreds more in a concert venue which today was still closed off as a crime scene. How did he get 10 bags to his suite carrying 23 weapons without getting noticed? How did he break 2 windows with a sledgehammer without drawing attention? How long was he planning the massacre? NBC News sources say he checked in last Thursday, 4 days before the killings. But the biggest unknown is why. Stephen Paddock's brother has no answer.
We got nothing to give you. There's just nothing. He was just a guy.
Paddock was a known high roller in Las Vegas, and NBC News reports that days before the massacre, he transferred $100,000 out of the country to an account in the Philippines where his girlfriend may have family. She has been out of the country but is expected back soon, and authorities have questions. But then everyone has questions.
I'm also angry, really angry, that so many lives have been cut short and so many people have been affected.
As pictures of the dead began putting faces to the carnage, Jim Murren, CEO of MGM Resorts, the largest casino company in Las Vegas, says changes will come, but what they are, no one's really sure.
I love my town. I know my town. I feel responsible for everything that happens in this town. And but I do know that we did everything that we could, and we will continue to do everything we can.
At the Wynn today, home video showed metal detector wands being used and bags checked.
I think that when all the investigations are done, that possibly something good will come from it in terms of being able to learn how we could do things better.
The news is not stopping people from coming to Las Vegas.
Did you have any second thoughts?
Yeah, we did, but we decided to come anyway.
There isn't anywhere safe. I live in Northern Virginia, 15 minutes out of D.C. I'm just saying. So there's not really anywhere that you can say is 100% safe.
It could happen anywhere, but why it happened here, we still don't know. For Nightly Business Report, Jane Wells, Las Vegas.
Wall Street is also analyzing the impact on the gaming sector. Today, a longtime bull on MGM Resorts, which of course owns the Mandalay Bay, downgraded that stock, citing concerns that the mass shooting could have a negative effect on bookings and profit in the coming months.
Lennar's profit grows. And that's where we begin tonight's Market Focus. Despite seeing many of its markets impacted by the recent hurricanes, the nation's second largest home builder actually still managed to report a rise in both profit and revenue that topped expectations. Companies cited increased demand and higher average selling prices. Shares of Lennar were higher by 4% today to $55.35. And Delta said that flight disruptions from Hurricane Irma are expected to cost that airline $120 million in the third quarter. For the same period, the largest U.S. airline said it expects to report passenger unit revenue that rose about 2%. Investors had feared that the financial impact from the storm would be worse. So shares actually soared on Delta Day by 6% to $51.25. And as you see, the shares of several other airlines also took off today and sent the Dow Transports into record territory. Paychex said that strong performance in its HR services division helped overall profits and sales to rise more than expected. The payroll processor also lifted its full-year guidance, saying that it expects revenue to grow by about 6%. Meanwhile, shares rose by more than 3% to $61.99. Sue?
Bill, Walmart is beefing up its delivery services with a deal to acquire logistics company Parcel. The retail giant plans to tap into Parcel's technology and employee base to offer same-day delivery in New York City for Walmart and Jet.com purchases. Walmart shares were up almost 1% to $79.22. Fiat Chrysler is recalling more than 700,000 SUVs on concerns that water exposure could affect brake function. That recall applies to 2011 through 2014 Dodge Durango and Jeep Grand Cherokees. The potential defect stems from a previous recall in 2014. Fiat Chrysler shares were up a penny to $17.96. Bill?
The FCC wants to make millions of dollars available to repair communication networks in hurricane-battered Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. The chairman of the agency has proposed making available more than $75 million in funding to help restore cell service there. Nearly 90% of cell sites remain out in Puerto Rico. 69% are out in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
And President Trump was in Puerto Rico today to survey the damage from Hurricane Maria. And one of the major focuses was financial aid to that island. Contessa Brewer is in San Juan.
President Trump landed at midday, 2 weeks after Hurricane Maria tore across the island.
And it got wiped out on top. Huh?
Though she engaged in a social media fight with the president before his visit, San Juan's mayor, Carmen Yulín Cruz, accepted an invitation to meet with him today, focused on keeping the lines of communication open.
Right from the beginning, this governor did not play politics.
For his part, Puerto Rico's governor, Ricardo Rosselló, says it's important for the president to get a clear picture of the magnitude of the damage.
We've calculated that the damage of the storm is extensive. And what we want is from that aid package to receive, number one, the funding that is consistent with the damage as would have been in Florida or Texas for the citizens of Puerto Rico.
Even before Hurricane Maria hit, Puerto Rico was struggling with an unemployment rate more than twice the national average and half the people here living in poverty. The island's finances are under a federal oversight board following a $73 billion bankruptcy, the largest municipal bankruptcy in U.S. history. Over the last decade, there's been a big problem of Puerto Ricans leaving the island in favor of more opportunity in the United States. And now, with Maria crippling the infrastructure here and schools in the states bracing for more students from Puerto Rico, the governor is worried about a mass exodus.
If we don't place the correct initial conditions in an aid package, this is not only going to occur immediately, but it's going to occur in the mid-run and in the long run. And the effect of that is going to be that you're not only going to get hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans moving to the states, you're going to get millions.
As President Trump visits Guaynabo, just outside San Juan, he asked residents about their homes.
So your house, it's okay.
Most Puerto Ricans won't be watching Trump's visit without electricity or cell communications. Those who know about it wonder whether his tour today will make it easier to get food, water, gas, and medicine tomorrow. For Nightly Business Report, Contessa Brewer, San Juan.
Coming up, an historic drug approval comes with an historic price tag. The business behind a new way of fighting cancer in tonight's Modern Medicine. Last night, we brought you the story of Caitlin Johnson, a young girl who beat cancer with the help of a revolutionary treatment. Tonight, a look at what that medicine costs and the complicated business of a truly personalized drug. Meg Terrell has the second and final part of our Modern Medicine series.
Mandy and James Johnson say when it came to treating their daughter Caitlin's cancer, no price would have been too high.
Money would have never been a deciding factor.
After 2.5 years of chemotherapy failed her, Caitlin found success with an experimental treatment that used her own immune cells to clear her leukemia. The FDA approved the first of its kind drug August 30th. Its price, $475,000. Even at a time of eye-popping drug prices, that number raised eyebrows. Doctors at Memorial Sloan Kettering said it, quote, shattered oncology drug pricing norms. The medicine, called Kymriah, is unique in several ways. Each patient's therapy is made from her own immune cells, requiring a more complex manufacturing process. The price is for a one-time treatment, and the number of patients for whom the drug is approved is small, about 600 people in the U.S. each year.
A new type of medicine like this, and there will be so many others that are administered just once and for profound benefit, really require us as a community to identify, appropriate and fair pricing structures.
Novartis, which markets Kymriah, said that some outside analyses suggested a fair price could be as high as $600,000. The company also employed a new pricing model. For patients covered by a government program, Novartis only gets paid if their cancer is clear 30 days after treatment.
the CAR T therapy is administered to all patients who need it. And if the medicine is working at a fixed period of time, then Novartis is compensated. And if it doesn't, then we feel good about having provided this chance for that patient.
Kymriah's success rate in clinical trials was more than 80%. And Novartis isn't the only company working in this new technology. The same week Kymriah was approved, biotech giant Gilead spent $12 billion to acquire Kite Pharma. Approval of its medicine for another kind of blood cancer could come later this year. Other companies, including Celgene, Juno Therapeutics, Bluebird Bio, and Selectus, are also working to adapt immune cells into better cancer hunters. It's a market Cowen Research estimates could reach $5 to $10 billion at its peak. As companies work to expand the technology's reach, its cost will continue to come into question.
I think it's easier to swallow a price tag like this when you're talking about a kid who has 70 years more life available to them if they are cured.
Caitlin's treatment was paid for by Novartis because she was in its clinical trial, but the rest of her care has been costly.
Our insurance has been billed in excess of $10 million for Caitlin's treatment from day one to current.
Doctors say we're still in the early days of this new way to treat cancer, so the question will continue to be asked. How do you put a price on life? For Nightly Business Report, I'm Meg Terrell.
And to read more about Caitlin's story and the business behind this new way of treating cancer, you can always head to our website, nbr.com. Pretty amazing story, Bill, right?
We are in a beginning stages, I think, of a golden age for medical technology that uses immunotherapy in our own immune system. It's amazing.
I couldn't agree with you more. On that note, that's Nightly Business Report for tonight. I'm Sue Herrera. Thanks for joining us.
I'm Bill Griffith. Have a great evening, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.